on something substantial, because you want to put at least perhaps about a third of the force through the heel, although most of the force will generally be in the ball of the feet. This looks about right. I like this. Of course, we can't see the relative height of the heel from the side, which we'll look at here in a minute. Now, she pushes this out, her knees are going together, which is not required, but if you like to do that, that's okay. Once you get about halfway out, you'll let them separate, and as you come back, they might go back together. This will give some people some needed security. One question that often puzzles many instructors is how high to have the feet on the foot pedal. The relationship is often judged as a gentle slope downward from the knee to the feet. I don't think that this gives most of us a reliable guideline. I think the best thing to do is to study the congestion in the ankles as the person starts in their beginning position and goes to their finished position. If you've got the feet too low, you've got a lot of congestion in the ankles. And if you've got the feet too high, you've got congestion again. But instead of being on the front of the ankles, it's more in the back of the ankles. Plus, you tend to feel like the feet are just going to slip upwards and off of the foot pedal. And although this might not happen, probably won't happen in most cases, you still have this feeling that it might happen. So, with this Medix machine, I think you're going to be safe with having a small person with their feet where the heels are pretty much flush to the bottom of the pedal, and having larger people an inch up from the bottom with their heels, and then maybe a little higher than that for your really, really large people. But the bottom line, I believe, is that again of congestion in the ankles. Okay, Colleen, this is the new SuperSlow leg press. And I'm going to first go through the introduction, just like we do on the Medix. There's a few things just slightly different, but for those people who need to see this done, we're going to do that. So I'm going to put down my clipboard and sort of make a guess at the weight here. And I want you to put your feet up here. We're going to look at doing a leg press first. I'm going to put the seat tilt back to the middle position. I'm going to bring the shoulder pads down to just barely touch you. Is your butt back in that angle? It looks like it is. Okay, now let's put your feet, and this is based on just my experience, inside of the three. If you draw a straight line down, put your feet up to the three and under the two, which is where you are. Now, I'm doing that because I'm guessing that with the length of your legs, that once you get down into the starting position, you will not have much of a severe congestion in your ankles. Okay. And when you finish it, you will not have your feet so high that you tend to slide off the top of this thing. So this looks like a good position for the length of your legs based on my experience. Okay. Now, I want to see you very slowly straighten your legs. I'll go almost to where they're straight. Go about right there. Now I'm going to bring this movement arm stop forward. Go a little further and see if it engages. There, it engaged. Now, don't try too hard, but can you lock your knees? Yes, you can. Yeah, we don't want that. Now, let the carriage come forward a little bit. I have moved the movement arm stop. Now you can't straighten the legs, can you? No. Good. That's what I want. Now, stay there. Is this becoming too much pressure on your shoulders? It's okay there? All right. Actually, the shoulder pads, as you're doing a leg press, won't do much. Most of it's going to be into your pelvis. Now, you can't quite straighten your legs, right?
No.
We refer to this as the end point. The end point is a position loosely defined as just before your knees straighten. We do not want to go beyond this for 3 reasons. 2 of them are safety reasons. If you're performing this exercise and you're fatiguing and your hamstrings and your quad are sort of warring with each other and quivering, your knees could lock backwards suddenly, abruptly, and hurt them. Most of us have one leg a little shorter than the other. And if the same thing is going on, that shorter leg is going to lock before the other one. And it's going to twist or torque your pelvis and hurt your back. So I become very anxious when I see legs lock out or get close to locking out, which is why I have that stop built onto this machine. Now, this is a pretty hard stop. In the MedX, if you remember, we can position the seat so that you run into, or that's not the correct word, but a butt, the top of the stroke before your legs lock. But that is more or less a soft stop. It will not prevent you from locking out unless you actually put the seat a little too close. Also, when you get close to the lockout on the MedX, it is very easy because your feet travel downward as you straighten your legs, that your pelvis can pop up out of the seat. Since we have your feet higher relative to your hip angle or hip joint, your buttocks will stay down. So it's much more secure. We can actually go to the end point if we have properly located the movement arm stop and actually do a static there for some of the repetitions. Now, the third reason we do not want to completely lock out your knees is this. Pretend that this is your upper leg, this is your lower leg, and you have a knee in between. If that knee straightens and the bones align, well, then the bones are supporting the majority of the load, except for some minor balancing performed by the muscles. The bones are supporting everything in that position. Therefore, the muscles are doing practically nothing. Therefore, there is no exercise. This is why running and walking and things like that are not exercise, and it also tells you why you can do those things forever. We are designed to move across the surface of the earth in such a way that the bones support most of the load, thus providing a respite for the muscles, thus enabling them to have some endurance. If that wasn't true, we wouldn't be able to walk very far, or run very far, or do many things for longer than about 2 minutes. But in this exercise, we're trying to keep the muscles loaded. We're not trying to go on. We're trying to get to a failure. We're trying to put an end to this thing. We're trying to get to the point where we've challenged the body and stimulated some growth. So this is why, from an exercise perspective, that we are not going to allow your knees to lock. Now, slowly lower the weight. Let your knees bend. Let your movement arm come forward. Now, leave your feet where they are, but do not push. Now, I want you to tell me how close I can get you here before you start feeling or hearing your pelvis turn up in the seat. Out there? Okay. Now, some people would encounter congestion of their tummies because they were large in here before their pelvis turned up, whichever comes first. Okay? Let me get my clipboard, and I'm going to draw something for you here. here so you can see this a little bit, Rick. Can you see this, Colleen? Yes. Imagine that that point is the end point we just discussed. Imagine that that is where you are right now, and you're going to go from this to here within 10 seconds. So here is that 10-second positive from the bottom to the top. This dotted area is what we call the upper turnaround. It passes through the end point. In the early repetitions, we will not stop here. We'll just touch and turn around. Now on the Med-X, that is always the case.
Yes.
But here, that might not always be the case. But in the first 2 repetitions, we'll just touch and turn around and then come back down. All of this is about the same speed of motion. Now you might want to go a little slower as you get near the bottom so you don't slam into the bottom. All of this is known as the lower turnaround. And I want to say a few special words about the lower turnaround. Backing up a bit, this exercise is for your lower body. That's obvious. But more specific than that is for your legs. More specific yet again, it is for your buttocks. Your buttocks is the largest, strongest skeletal musculature in the entire body, and it has the greatest overall effect, not only on the other skeletal muscles, but on your general metabolism. Therefore, we are extremely interested in keeping our buttocks loaded in this lower turnaround. And we're going to do that by following the 3 rules of the lower turnaround. 1, always bottom out. That means lower the weights all the way down. Use the full stroke that I've prescribed into your settings. Do not cut yourself short. Rule number 2, do not unload at bottom out. Now, you're at bottom out right now, but you're just sitting there, right? Okay. Between successive repetitions, when you bottom out, you want to be pushing on this pedal as hard as you can and still touch the weights. Another way to say that is, as you touch the weights, let off of this as little as possible, as little as necessary. And rule number 3, do not fire out of the bottom out. That successive repetition, you should start that like you're squeezing off the shutter on a fine camera. Pretend that you're trying to be sneaky. Pretend that you're trying to start it in such a way that I can't tell when you start. It should look like it's not going to start. Now, before I have you do a few practice repetitions, I want to point out a possible inconsistency in something I just said. A few statements back, I indicated that we're primarily interested in working your buttocks here. Right? Well, I would be surprised. It could happen, but I would be surprised if you feel your buttocks. I'm actually going to expect you to feel something else. What do you think that might be? Frontal thighs, that's right. Why? They're just more sensitive. Now, they're only doing about 20% of the work. Roughly speaking, your buttocks is doing 80% of the work in this exercise, but they're insensitive. Frontal thighs are very sensitive, and for a while you're really going to feel them, but within time you will sensitize the buttocks muscles to where the balance will reverse somewhat. Okay, now let's do a few practice repetitions. Put your hands on those handles down there. It's one place you can look at them. You can also, if you like, put them upside down in your butt like that. But if you use the handles, put them there, and do not grip, pull, or push. Put your head back for me. And slowly commence that. Let's see how we go with that. Good start. I will give you a cadence count, probably starting with the second one. Good. Come around here, Rick, and shoot this angle about where I'm standing. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pretty good. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, halfway, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, halfway, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now stay right there. Actually tighten your butt against that. You do that by trying to straighten your legs and letting your butt stay down in the seat. Don't turn your head. Come on back now. As it becomes more difficult, you feel your thighs burn. Your thighs burning is not an indication that you're weak. It's just discomfort. And as that occurs, think, but, and breathe more. Now squeeze your butt right there. Breathe as you do. Knees off the squeeze, the knees out of that position right in there, because it tends to be a little too easy just after coming out of the top. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, halfway, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Squeeze there, good. All right. Now, one indication you can go by, if you can hear them, is the bearings below you. Barely starting now. Think butt. Breathe more. You can hear the individual clicking of the bearings down there. They're probably going slow enough. If they ever make a swoosh sound, and you do not hear them distinctly, you're moving too fast. Now, that'll be the last one. Lower it as though you're going to do another one, but then don't do another one. Good. Sit right there. Leave your feet where they are so that I can open this. And I'm going to help you exit this. I'm going to hold this knee and this shoulder, spin you, your feet are flat on the floor, I back away, stand, but do not try to walk. Then walk distrustingly. There's a time coming when this exercise is going to pretty much devastate the strength in your legs momentarily, and your legs might buckle, and I want you to be guarded against that. Now, I want you to sit back down into the machine. I'm going to show you why I did a couple of things the way I did to get you out of the machine. Go ahead and turn, put your feet back up here. Now, we always want to do things in the most expeditious way, as well as safe. And if we open this up, or even if we don't open this up and you put your feet down, put your feet down. Right? Now, in order to turn you, you have to raise your feet back up. See, we already had them up. We were halfway there. So if you keep them feet here and I just turn you, it cuts down on the movement slightly. Another thing that might happen is that as you're trying to lift yourself out of the machine, some clients will reach up and grab these. Now as I turn them, I can hurt their shoulder as they're trying to hold on to these things. So don't hold this. So leave your feet up here, keep your hands down, and just sort of let me spin you, and I back away. Put your feet back where we had them for the leg press. Let's see, we had your toes up to the 2 and out in the side of the shoe out to the 3. And if you're unclear about that, you might get something like a clipboard to put here. Like that. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing squats because of the problems it creates for some people's backs. Also loading through the shoulders. And a squat is more or less defined as loading through the shoulders, whereas a leg press is loading through the pelvis. Now, up until now, you've not felt much pressure on your shoulders, have you? In the leg press or the calf raise. Now I'm going to lean you back in this seat. This is a position made to do squats. Okay. I'm going to bring you forward. And you tell me where you'd like to go to. Stop there. Now, I'm going to have much more range of motion around the hip joint this way. Not that you have to have it. I'm not advocating this for that reason. You might use this exercise, this squatting exercise, instead of someone else you've decided to do something a little different with and you had them do a pole squat or a wall squat with. Now they don't have to balance. And of course, I will set the movement arm stop here in a moment when I see how far you can travel so that you can't lock your knees completely. This is the same weight I gave you for the leg presses, just so you can compare what's going on. But I suspect that once you do this, go ahead and start, yes. I'll move it forward. Yeah. Okay. Now, my experience is that you still don't have much pressure into your shoulders.
No, I don't.
Mainly into the shoulder blades. That area. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that out. It's a very nice start. Now, in leg press or this squat, it's legal, in a sense, to actually run your knees together, put your knees together. Some people like to do that. And then as you get more straight, they come apart. If someone likes to do that and it makes them feel more secure, there's nothing wrong with it. Squeeze about right there. You're not incurring any adverse shoulder pressure, right?
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised that is like it is. Okay, relax. All right? Keep your feet open. Opening up, rocking forward and around. I strongly recommend that the barbell squat be avoided, if at all possible, only if you have the correct equipment and do this in such a way that all of the safety procedures are followed. Should you even entertain the idea of doing this exercise? It is a productive exercise, but if you can get the same effect on your legs, buttocks, and back with doing the other styles of squat or leg press, please do and avoid this. Now, Colleen, we've done freehand body squats and what we sometimes call pole squats, manual resistance squats. And sometimes with some individuals, you may want more resistance than that, because even if they're extremely slow in the movement and they try to stay in that difficult mid-range, you may want to have
more resistance for them so that they don't go on indefinitely with repetitions. So one of the best approaches to doing some squats is to do the old barbell squat. And that's what we're going to do here. It doesn't require much equipment. It's crude in a sense, but it's also a very productive exercise. The problem with doing a barbell squat, and this sometimes concerns me greatly, is it makes me very tense, is just the very action of teaching it. Once a person knows how to do it, it can be very safe, but learning how to do it properly, that's where the danger is. So what I want to show you here, this is a simple squat rack with adjustable height and safety stands. You want to step into this. The reason why you want to step into it rather than step out of it at first is that when you get fatigued, you don't want to be having to back up, especially if there's a cross support on the floor you could trip over. You want to be able to see where you're going, more importantly, after the exercise rather than before it. This is an optional pad for your shoulders. Go ahead and step under that. Place that pad on your shoulder. Some people place it sort of high up on their neck, which is generally not a good idea. And gradually straighten up. Step out just a little ways where you're not fearful of hitting the higher supports. Now, step back into it now. Set it back down. Become comfortable with just taking it in, taking it out. Step back again. Now, take your hands off the bar for a moment. Look straight ahead. I want you to do a very slow squat there. We're going to look at some things with your knees and your balance. Now note that your heels are coming up. When your heels come up, you've got everything balanced on the balls of your feet and your toes, which means you're probably going to be pretty unstable. Also, when you go down like that, you hear a lot of recommendations from some of the exercise authorities saying you should never go below a certain height to protect your knees. For instance, some people have said for years that you should never go below where the thighs are parallel. Other people are now recommending that you don't go any lower than what your knees move out in front of your feet. All of that is basically incorrect. The real issue here, and there's actually more than one, the first is speed of motion. Moving slowly is going to eliminate excessive forces. The corollary to that is you don't want to bounce at the bottom. Bouncing, changing directions at the bottom is going to tend to pull your knees apart. The recommendation that I believe in as far as how low you should go is to go no lower in the squat than what you begin to make contact, solid contact with the back of your thigh with the back of your calf area. And never relax down there. Most of the stabilization for your knees is dynamic, and that means muscular. Once you relax down there, all of your stabilization for the knee is said to be static stabilizers. In other words, your ligamentous structures. So if you go all the way down to the point that you're completely lax and flaccid down there, well then you have no muscular support. You've turned that off. And now you have just ligamentous support. And if you bounce on it, that's even worse. You're just popping that thing, prying them apart. So you want to go down with control just until you barely touch or make a little bit of solid contact without relaxing the back of your thigh, the back of your calf, and then gradually start back up. No heaving, no bouncing, and come back up. Now, I mentioned before I got into that you were off balance because your heels are going to come up. Mm-hmm. So there are some people who can squat and keep their heels perfectly flat. Now, as I said, most people can't do that. You need something under your heels. And what I recommend is just a 2x4. Doesn't have to be